Yu Yu Hakusho was a shonen anime which first aired in 1992. Being based on the manga by Yoshihiro Togashi, Yu Yu Hakusho would become very popular with anime fans and go on to be incredibly influential in its own medium, inspiring a number of the most popular franchises. Now, in celebration of its 25th anniversary, longtime fans of the series are going to be rewarded with new OVAs which will explore parts of the story never shown in the anime. These new OVAs have led to widespread speculation about what's to come in the future of the franchise. Will the series be revived, or perhaps go down a path similar to Togashi's other anime, Hunter x Hunter? Should Yu Yu Hakusho be remade? Well, in this video, we're going to discuss that. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and enable notifications so you can see all of my content right away when it comes out. Okay guys, so like I said in the intro, in this video we're going to be discussing the topic of should Yu Yu Hakusho get a remake? So to join me in this video, you've seen him on my videos in the past, a legendary YouTuber who you guys know very well. His name is...
Alrighty guys, it is Qaaman here today.
Okay, Qaaman, so this is a really interesting topic, and you and I are both really big fans of the Yu Yu Hakusho anime and manga. It's my second favorite of all time, and I know it's one of your favorites, so I thought it made sense to have you on this video and to pose this question to you. Do you think that Yu Yu Hakusho should receive a remake that is similar to, say, the Hunter x Hunter remake from 2011?
Well, my thing is, Mike, is I actually don't think Yu Yu Hakusho should be remade, and ironically, comparing to Hunter x Hunter, it's both a Togashi product. But my thing is that I feel like Yu Yu Hakusho, in terms of its story, in terms of its animation, in terms of everything, was so perfect and well contained that I think it holds up for modern audiences today. If you look at some of the Blu-ray releases of Yu Yu Hakusho, I think the quality is pretty top-notch. I mean, yeah, the animation style might have aged, but that's really by taste. I still think, you know, it holds up pretty well. So in terms of how it looks, I think it's fine. In terms of, you know, the dubbing, I think that Funimation did a fairly good job with the dub. I mean, yeah, there were some changes, obviously, but, you know, and they could probably do a better job today. But I think that unlike Dragon Ball that constantly needs to update, I think Yu Yu Hakusho is one of those series where, like, the people who really like it already really like it, and I don't think there need any changes to it.
Those are some good points, and, you know, many people who propose the concept of them doing a remake, they like to say that it will be updated with modern animation, you know, it'll be able to more easily appeal to people of the current generation of anime fans who watch series like Hunter x Hunter and other Togashi product, as well as My Hero Academia and some big anime of the time today. But the thing is with Yu Yu Hakusho, I also agree that in terms of its animation, it doesn't really need to be remade because a lot of its animation still looks great. Like, I have the whole series on Blu-ray, and just watching it, which I have pretty much every year since I got it, and, you know, since I really got back into the series after it aired on Toonami, you know, there are some parts maybe that, you know, really stand out as 90s, but the thing is that I really like that 90s style of animation, that cell animation, and, you know, that's one of the things that really drew me into other series like Trigun, like Outlaw Star, and of course Dragon Ball Z. So I feel like that's just more of animation taste and more of, you know, what you would be more into in terms of how the animation flows. And, you know, I don't think that it's like a 70s animation or something where, you know, it was a lower budget and it's just completely outdated at this point. It still has a really nice visual style.
Right, and we both agree on that. In terms of the visuals, I don't really think it needs an upgrade, because that's usually what remakes are for. You know, they want to upgrade it, they want to teach it to a new audience. But from what I know, like, I do think there are a lot of young kids who might not be familiar with Yu Yu Hakusho, but at the same time though, I still feel like the core fan base of Yu Yu Hakusho already kind of knows it exists, and I do think that this new OVA special that's coming out is already doing a pretty decent job to, like, remind fans about the show. So I don't think Yu Yu Hakusho is one of those shows that's forgotten. I think it's a show that's not as updated as Dragon Ball, but it's not one of those shows shows where it's like, I think people forgot about it. It's one of those things where it's like, we love the show, it had its time, a good beginning, middle, and end, and we just kind of moved on, but we still respect how brilliant the series is.
Yeah, I completely agree. You know, Yu Yu Hakusho is one of those series that it might not be as popular as its follow-up or spiritual successor in Hunter x Hunter, but at the same time, you can argue that's even more influential because, you know, Yu Yu Hakusho's events inspired other series like Naruto and other series like Bleach, and even you could say that there was some inspiration that rubbed off onto Dragon Ball because there are some similarities between things that happen in Yu Yu Hakusho in, say, the first arc of the series, and then some of the things that happen in the Buu saga, like Byakko and Gyakon are two big, very similar situations, although obviously watching Yu Yu Hakusho, you could see it took some real inspiration from Dragon Ball Z as well, especially with a character like Karasu, who just turns into a Super Saiyan during the Dark Tournament, which I still think was pretty cool. But the big thing that many people will say in terms of a remake is that it could help attract a new audience, and of course we've talked so far about the core audience, you know, people like us who watched it back in the day and who have watched it since and who really have grown to love the series and, you know, over the many years that we've watched it. But what about the new audiences that might kind of be deterred from watching it because it is older, because they're only really used to watching like newer stuff? Do you think that in their case they should just kind of watch it regardless, or do you think that maybe a remake would be beneficial when it comes to bringing in those people to this franchise?
That's a very good question, Mike, because like in order for a franchise to really maintain its stability, it has to be perpetual. And let me just make a quick offhanded point here, Mike, that I feel about a lot of franchises. I feel like one of the things about franchises that exist, and Dragon Ball has this issue, Pokemon has this issue, Yu-Gi-Oh has this issue, is that when something gets so popular, it like will never end because it's just a money-making machine. So Dragon Ball, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon will never end because they're just too popular, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And for Pokemon specifically, there's so many things in addition to the anime that it makes money from. So looking at that specifically, I feel like Yu Yu Hakusho is one of those series that doesn't really get a lot of video games. It doesn't get a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah.
So remaking it would seem like a good idea on paper. I just don't think it would be necessary because of how good the show already was. That's all I'm getting at.
Yeah, you know, from an artistic perspective, like, obviously the show is already great, the manga is already great, so, you know, it's not something that I feel like really needs to be touched in terms of from that. You know, oftentimes when you do a remake, what you want to do is improve it. So are they going to be able to improve the original? I'm not so sure about that. You know, they might make something that's really good. I mean, it has a great source material, but I'm not too sure if they'd really be able to top the original. However, you know, with this OVA, it does raise the question of what about instead of doing a remake, what if instead they do a continuation or follow-up? With this OVA, it seems like they're going to be taking a look at some of the things that the anime didn't cover from the manga, as well as delving into like the backstory of how Hiei and Kurama met, which is, you know, something I'm really interested to see them actually animate. However, beyond that, there were some things that were implied to possibly be happening after the events of the anime and manga, such as them doing other Demon World tournaments to determine who would rule the Demon World after the tournament's over. And I believe it's either at the end of the manga or Izu Hakusho, we see that Yusuke, Kuwabara, and the rest of the gang are going off to the next Demon World tournament so that they can fight. So what do you think about this? What do you think about maybe doing a continuation of just like a mini arc, or maybe doing something beyond that in the future?
You know, I feel like if Yu Yu Hakusho were to stay a fresh series, I think the way it continues should be like through a movie, an OVA, maybe like a one-shot manga or something like that. I feel like it can continue in like small self-contained stories, but I think if you try to do like a massive like full arc type of thing with the series, I think it's going to create like a lot of questions and issues amongst its fan base. And the thing is, the Yu Yu Hakusho fan base is out there. One thing I would say about it, Mike, and we could both attest to this, is that the Yu Yu Hakusho fan base is quiet but active. Like, they really care about the series. It's just that we haven't gotten anything new, so we don't really have anything to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's true. And again, like you were saying, you know, when it comes to video games and extra materials, they don't really get a lot because Yu Yu Hakusho kind of had its time decades ago. So if they do a continuation, maybe kind of similar to what happened when Dragon Ball Super or Dragon Ball Z got its original continuation with Battle of Gods, then maybe it could lead to even bigger things. But the thing is, I have to wonder, and this comes down to a similar situation with, how Toriyama is involved in Dragon Ball Super. What about Togashi and his involvement? Because as we know, Togashi is like the BLACKENFIST of the manga community, He's basically a mangaka who will write something and then he'll go on a very lengthy hiatus. So do you think he would really be involved in this new series or follow up, whatever they would want to do? And if he is involved, do you think it would be in a big way, or do you think it would be more like writing notes and giving minimal contributions?
Okay, well, if it's a self-contained story, I feel like Togashi could have a major impact on it. I feel like if it's a drawn-out arc, I think it's going to have the same issues that Hunter x Hunter unfortunately faces. You're more familiar with that anime than I am, Mike, but, a lot of fans have complained that, like, Togashi still hasn't finished that series, and, I think since Yu Yu Hakusho is already done, and this is just my personal opinion, but since Yu Yu Hakusho is already done, Mike, I would actually find it irritating if Yu Yu Hakusho were to come back and then it faces the same issues that Hunter x Hunter faces, where it's like intermittent on and off, because it's like you brought Yu Yu Hakusho back to like only, put your toe in the pool. Like if Yu Yu Hakusho is coming back, like I want a full exposure of it. I don't want like, half effort or, sticking your toes in the pool. I want a full immersion into the series, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I think it would definitely be cool if they were to bring it back. And, depending upon the frequency of when it comes out, like you said, it could become problematic. Like if Togashi like starts this big new epic arc, the next Demon World Tournament arc, and it becomes like this big thing that the original Demon World Tournament with the Three Kings arc was supposed to be, where it becomes like a big war, and then like a quarter of the way or halfway through it, he just like takes a break for like a month or years or something like that, then it could be really problematic. But, I guess I also could perhaps think about it long term, in which, if it takes him like 3 years to make this and it's just one arc, for us watching like while it's happening, it could be really frustrating. But if it ends up being amazing, and then we can go back to it and rewatch it or reread it, depending upon how the continuation happens, and it's great, then, in the long term, 10 plus years from now, maybe we'll be really happy that we got it. So I guess it really comes down to how it's executed, if Togashi's involved, how he'll be involved in it, and obviously the story they have to tell. Because if they're just gonna put a new story on there that's just literally to make money, that has very little like real connective tissue to what happened before, and that really is kind of just like a blatant cash grab, then I feel like we're gonna enjoy it a lot less than, say, something that has real substance to it.
Right. And I mean, the thing with series like this is that I do feel like if Yu Yu Hakusho were to come back, since it ended so well, although some people might not like the ending, I think it would have very big shoes to fill, like Bindlebeep's size. And because of that, like I really feel, Mike, that if Yu Yu Hakusho has huge shoes to fill, that might give, the staff that works on it a lot of issues. Because like Yu Yu Hakusho is like such a good product that like I really feel like if you're coming back, like man, you really have to step your game up,
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like Yu Yu Hakusho isn't just like some typical shonen. It really is one of the best shonen to ever be made, and it really had a pretty near perfect ending. Like you could say what you will about the arc, I actually really liked the Three Kings arc, even though I completely agree that there could have been more done to it, but from a character development perspective, I thought it was great. But beside that, that ending where they're on the beach, I think that was a great way to wrap it all up. So if you're going to continue beyond that, it's really like the Star Wars original trilogy when you think about it. It's kind of a weird analogy, but, they had the perfect ending with Return of the Jedi. The Empire was destroyed, everyone was together celebrating, and that's how you wrap up the original trilogy. And, with the sequels, you can kind of say what you want about them, but I feel like many Star Wars fans would agree that they didn't quite live up to the original, and in some ways they might have diminished the original trilogy, at least the ending of Return of the Jedi. So you don't want to be put in that situation with Yu Yu Hakusho, where it ends up not only being a disappointing successor, but also something that might diminish the original. But like they say oftentimes when it comes to a remake or a continuation, if the original is still great, you could throw everything else out because that original is still going to stand the test of time.
Yep, and that's what people always say. It's a gift and a curse. It's like, well, if the new one sucks, well, then they'll say, well, at least we have the original Yu Yu Hakusho.
Yeah, completely agree. So, do you have any final thoughts before we go?
No, I mean, I guess if there was one thing I would add, I do think that if this were to really be something taken into fruition, I think whatever staff works on this project has to really take a look at Togashi. Togashi and like see like how invested he actually is, because if he really isn't invested, and one of the reasons he ended Yu Yu Hakusho was because of his health issues, then I don't think that they should put the effort, because, you know, he's probably the one who could probably do the best story arc. I don't want it to be like a substandard where like it's, you know, you just write an outline and then make the others do the work, you know?
Yeah, I completely agree. So overall, I'm not really for the concept of a remake, but at the same time, if they were to make one and if it ended up being really good, then I don't think I would really mind it. I mean, we always still have the original, but I feel like I'm more inclined to see a really good continuation than I am a remake. But this is the time when you guys tell us your thoughts down below, whether you think that Yu Yu Hakusho should be remade and what your thoughts are on the original series. Make sure to check out Qaaman in the end screen and description of this video. Also, if you're new to this channel, then make sure to subscribe and enable notifications so that you can see all of my videos right away when they come out. And if you like this video, then make sure to stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future. Yeah, I want to see the return of the masculine Togoro. That is what the continuation should be. Come on, do it now.